Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. Scotland's Stonehenge. Archaeologists are baffled by Scotland's very own Stonehenge site. The megalithic site is called the Ring of Brodgar, situated on the main island of Orkney in northern Scotland. It's a mysterious rock formation that has left scientists scratching their heads for years. The structure appears to form a natural amphitheater while being surrounded by a large earthen ditch. Only about half of the original 60 stones are still standing, and this site has been dated to anywhere from 1500 to 5500 years old. The curious truth is that according to Elaine Clark, the World Heritage Ranger for the site, experts just don't know the origins of the stones. They may have been erected in a huge circle as a type of prehistoric observatory. The stone circle could have been used as a site for rituals and for observing the solstices. Researchers aren't sure, making the Ring of Brodgar just as mysterious, if not even more mysterious, than Stonehenge to the south. Number 9. The Pyramid Stones. The Egyptian pyramids at the Giza Plateau are some of the best engineering marvels in human history. And while their impressive construction borders on the impossible, the fact they are still standing proves monumental feats were indeed possible even thousands of years ago. Some experts may claim the ancient Egyptians couldn't have possibly built such megalithic structures by themselves, but science tells us something different. The only real mystery no one seems able to solve is how in the world the massive stones were moved. The logistical challenge of transporting millions of tons of rock to a wasteland in the desert would have been astounding. The logistics are more unbelievable than the construction itself. New evidence shows the Egyptians may have achieved this feat by transporting the stones over water. Looking at an ancient Egyptian manuscript called the Wadi al-Jarf, researchers have found mention of a water diversion project that could have been used for building the pyramids. It looks like the Egyptians may have created artificial canals to connect the quarry where the stone was mined with Giza, a distance of over 11 miles. Instead of dragging monumental blocks across the sand, which does seem impossible, the Egyptians may have lowered them into boats and sailed them down artificial waterways. Number 8. The Underground City. The underground city of Derinkuyu was lost until 1963, when a man accidentally discovered an entrance to the subterranean city behind a wall in his house. At the time, it was one of the biggest archaeological discoveries in history. The city stretches nearly 300 feet into the earth, covering a huge area with tunnels, chambers, stables, ancient schools, chapels, and much more. It was a real city that held about 20,000 people during its peak, and yet it was totally invisible from above, able to be tightly sealed in case of an invasion. The big mystery here is that archaeologists aren't sure who exactly built this city or what its original purpose was. It's located in the Cappadocia region of Turkey and is arguably one of the most impressive ancient engineering projects ever made. The people who built it dug wells, built water tanks, and carved in ventilation shafts. It was a self-sustaining metropolis underground. It also had about 600 entrances that made it easy for people to come and go. One theory is that the city was built by the ancient Phrygians. That's the official line from the Turkish Department of Culture. They say the city was built 2,800 years ago as a way for the locals to avoid being invaded. It was then enlarged during the Byzantine era and used by Christians escaping persecution. It was used as recently as the 20th century to escape attacks by the Ottoman Empire. Researchers believe it wasn't officially abandoned until 1923, meaning it was only technically lost for about 40 years. Some people have said the underground city was built 14,500 years ago following an exploding comet. The comet exploded, sending dust and ash into the atmosphere and blocking out the sun. Some believe the people of Cappadocia, to escape the eternal night, went into hiding underground. Number 7. Scotland's Mysterious Bog Bodies. In 1975, a parking lot expansion project was undertaken at the ancient fort in Cramond Village, Scotland. This ancient fort near Edinburgh has been a popular tourist site since the 1950s. When it was decided to expand the parking lot to allow for more visitors, the workers found something amazing. They came across 9 adults and 5 infants buried in what had once been a toilet. It was a huge mystery right from the start. Unlike most bog bodies that are found in ancient wetlands and swamp-like environments, these bog bodies were dumped in an old Roman latrine. The latrine was carved from the earth around the year 140 AD, at a time when the Romans were trying to push through and conquer Scotland. The mystery is that the bodies were buried in the latrine about 500 years after they were made. So, who were these people? According to researcher Orsolya Serif from the University of Aberdeen, these bog bodies were buried during a period of cultural transformation. During the Middle Ages, there were three main groups living in Scotland. The Scotti lived in the west, the Picts lived in the north, and the Britons lived in the south. The ancient Cramond village was right in the middle of all three. Chances are these unfortunate people got caught up in a political feud, or even one of the many battles that took place as Christianity swept across the region. This was a time when people attacked their neighbors, burned down rival villages, and threw unwanted interlopers into old Roman toilets. And now for number 6, but first want to give a big shout out to Jaime A. Ramirez and Austin Wilson Stibb. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. If you are new here, welcome, and be sure to subscribe for more ancient mysteries. Number 6. The Lost Tomb of Alexander. Alexander the Great was one of the most legendary leaders in human history. Yet for the last 2,300 years since his death, nobody has been able to find his tomb. To this day, it's one of the greatest mysteries in the world. According to ancient historians, Alexander was initially buried in Memphis after his death in the year 323 BC. Alexander's general, Ptolemy, was allegedly the one who buried him there. But then something happened about 100 years later. Alexander's body was transferred from his original tomb in Memphis to the fabled city of Alexandria. Pharaoh Nectanebo II constructed a massive complex where Alexander's corpse was locked up tight. More historical accounts place Julius Caesar in Alexandria, paying his respect to the great general in the year 48 BC. Then, Queen Cleopatra allegedly stole gold from Alexander's tomb to finance her war against Rome. Alexander was supposedly in this tomb for centuries. The Roman Emperor Caligula visited him, stole his breastplate, and in the year 199, Septimius Severus visited the tomb and ordered it be sealed for the rest of eternity to prevent further looting. These days, no one knows where this tomb was located. We don't know if his body was moved again, and the remains of the tomb have never been discovered. It's probably still hiding somewhere in Alexandria, but nobody has the slightest notion of where. There is even a theory that Alexander was stolen back to Italy and buried in a secret tomb in Venice. Number 5. The Elamite Script. For 120 years since it was discovered, linear Elamite has been considered undecipherable. This script dates back to around 2500 BC and is composed of diamonds, dots, and dashes, and other geometric characters. French archaeologists first came across the script in 1903 when they were looking at the ancient ruins of Susa in Iran. It wasn't long before researchers confirmed Linear Elamite to be one of the 4 oldest written languages in human history. The other 3 are cuneiform from Mesopotamia, hieroglyphics from Egypt, and the Indus script from the Indus Valley. The Elamite civilization came up with this writing system during the Bronze Age. They had their capital in the city of Elam in southern Iran and were powerful from between 3200 and 539 BC when they vanished. After all these years, French archaeologist Francois Dessette believes he and his team have finally deciphered the ancient script. They looked at silver cups uncovered at archaeological sites and worked to decipher the script on them. Researchers say they can now read 72 of the characters, with only 4 remaining unknown. The thing researchers say was most confusing was the mixture of the script. It was written using both phonographic and logographic writing. Phonograms are individual letters which represent a sound, while logographs are characters that represent a whole word. The Elamites mixed them up to create their writing. However, not all scientists are convinced. Michael Mader from the University of Bern doesn't believe it. He says only 15 characters have known pronunciations, and that Francois Dessette hasn't given any tangible evidence that he has indeed cracked the code. As of now, only time and proof will tell. Number 4. The Lost Treasure. French priest Berenguer Saunière was sent to the small hamlet of Rennes-le-Château in 1885. He was 33 years old and began his work at a dilapidated church in the village dedicated to Mary Magdalene. It wasn't a great position, but he did his best. Then something strange happened. One day Berenguer suddenly started spending money. He began to purchase decorations for the church, bought plots of land for himself, and built up an impressive estate. He had a cage with monkeys in it, he constructed a villa, and moved in with his housekeeper, Marie Denarnaud. He also purchased Marie all the most expensive fashion items from Paris. The locals were confused on where in the world the priest was getting his money. He had no money to start with, and then suddenly he was rich. When he died in 1917, everyone was shocked to see the priest didn't have a penny to his name. For the rest of Marie's life, a woman who was almost definitely his secret lover, she struggled just to survive while selling off bits of his estate. We still don't know where the priest got his money, but there are rumors. Many believe he had discovered a treasure and that he sold bits and pieces of it off to help pay for his extravagant new lifestyle. Some believe he came across a lost treasure from the Knights Templar, something that was buried underneath the old and forgotten church. But where that treasure is now, nobody has any idea. Number 3. Viking burial riches. Outside the town of Tonsberg in Norway, a gigantic burial mound was uncovered on a farm in 1904. Underneath the mound was a relic unlike anything seen before. It soon became known as the Oseberg ship, and over 100 years later, the ship is still the most mysterious and one of the finest artifacts that survived from the Viking Age. It was a burial ship, complete with a small hoard of treasure and the remains of 2 individuals. Scientists have dated the ship to around 834 AD, although it may have been built as early as 800. This thing was buried at the height of the Viking Age, when they were raiding freely all over Europe. The mystery has to do with the 2 people discovered buried in the ship. According to National Geographic, the original researchers assumed such a grand burial plot would have been used for a great king or a male chieftain. What they found instead were the bodies of 2 Scandinavian women. One of the women was about 75 years old, the other around 50. They may have been related in some way, but researchers aren't really sure. Their identities still remain unknown, and scientists and historians are no closer to solving the mystery. This was a huge shock in the early 1900s, when even archaeologists couldn't imagine powerful women in a society like the Vikings. But these days, with all the archaeological evidence we have, it's confirmed that Viking women held positions of power. The Oseberg ship, one of the greatest Viking discoveries in history, was itself a grave for 2 mysterious, powerful women. Number 2. The Candelabra of the Andes. There is a mysterious geoglyph etched onto the side of a hill in Peru near the sea. It's called Paracas Candelabra in Spanish, or the Candelabra of the Andes in English. And as of right now, nobody knows what it is. Experts speculate it could be anything from a picture of a trident to a hallucinogenic plant. The geoglyph is huge, 600 feet from top to bottom. It's also etched 2 feet deep into the petrified sand of the hill. That's an unrealistic amount of work for whatever this thing is. Whoever created the geoglyph would have expended an immense amount of energy carving it. Just imagine how difficult it must have been to dig 2 feet deep through hardened sand without any modern tools. It would be hard enough to do it these days with a jackhammer. The carbon dating of artifacts found near the geoglyph suggests it was built around 200 BC. It looks like a large fork or a trident, although it also looks a lot like a candelabra. The most popular theory right now is that the glyph was made to be a trident, which was wielded by the Inca god Viracocha. It may have been etched into the hill by an ancient people looking to gain the favor of Viracocha, but at the same time, others say it was carved into the hill as a kind of beacon for sailors trying to find their way home. The truth is that we don't know what it is or who put it there. Number 1. El Argar civilization. The ancient civilization of El Argar appeared mysteriously on the Iberian Peninsula in Spain thousands of years ago. It became the first society based on class. They were also the first civilization to have a legitimate parliament. This was a huge step in the early Bronze Age and something that didn't come into play in a lot of other civilizations for centuries to come. El Argar appeared around 2200 BC, thrived for 650 years, and then collapsed suddenly and mysteriously in 1550 BC. Whatever happened, it was quick. Almost without any warning, they were just gone. Archaeologists have been struggling to figure out why, with one of the most popular theories being that they depleted their natural resources. This likely tanked their economy and threw the society into civil turmoil. El Argar was ruled by the elite class who controlled the mining, sale, and use of metallic products. In the Bronze Age, metal was not an easy thing to come by. Those at the top of the ladder controlled the workforce, the importation and development of metals, and who was allowed to even have metal objects. What researchers believe happened is that they ran out of metal right around the time they had a disgruntled workforce. The people were tired of being pushed around, and a civil war potentially broke out, destroying the whole civilization. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!